first chapter, we're gonna do the introduction. Alright, introduction of the Rana Plaza incident. Overview of the incident. The collapse of the 8-story Rana Plaza building housed garment factories producing for international brands due to engineering failures and ethical failures. Based on the incident, we got 1,100 plus deaths and 2,500 injured.
In the next chapter, we'll be having a discussion on this topic. On 23rd April 2013, a TV report featured visible cracks on the 8-story Rana Plaza building. Shops and banks were closed and the building was declared unsafe by the industrial police. However, workers were still forced to return under threat of termination or withheld wages. On the next day, the collapse began at 8:54 a.m. and it finished in just 90 seconds. 3,100 workers were inside and rescue efforts began immediately and lasted weeks. On the 13th of May, the search was ended and the final survivor was found. However, 1,100 was found dead and 2,400 was rescued. Here are some of the implications of the disaster. First, Bangladesh passed legislation mandating factory inspections by approved agencies. Next, the Accord on Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh was signed in May 2013. Furthermore, major brands face international pressure to ensure ethical sourcing and improve their oversight of factories. And also, there were UK-funded support that helped victims to receive medical care and rehabilitation. And lastly, there were still some ongoing challenges to enforce these rules, as only some factories achieved full compliance.
Next, we move to the technical or engineering. The first one is the repurpose of the building. The original purpose of Rana Plaza building was for retail shops and office spaces, and it has been repurposed to be garment factories, which involve additional loads from heavy machineries. The second issue is additional of illegal floors, where only first 5 stories were approved, but there are 3 additional floors were constructed without permit. The third one is using substandard materials, where steel rod was used and not strong enough to handle heavy loads. Next one is placing garment factories on the top floor. There are 5 garment factories and it is located between 2nd to 7th floor. The building also constructed on swampland, which prone to differential settlement and poor load distribution. Last but not least, the ignorance towards the evacuation warning. The building owner overruled the instruction from engineer to do complete evacuation even though there were significant cracks observed. Issue 1, 4, 5 and 6 violated Section 24A, while Action 2, 3 and 5 violated Section 8 of Engineers. These are what's stated in Section 8 and 24A in Registration of Engineers Act 1967.
Next will be ethical reasons for failures. The Rana Plaza tragedy was not just a structural failure, it was a serious ethical and legal breakdown. First, the building was illegally modified without approval from a registered engineer, violating Section 8 of the Engineers Act and Clause 2 of the BEM Code of Conduct. Second, despite visible cracks, workers were forced to return, ignoring evacuation advice. This breached Clause 23, which prioritized public safety. Third, permits for additional floors were obtained through bribery, violating Section 24 and Clause 13, which prohibits conduct that discredits the profession. Lastly, no engineer took responsibility for the building safety, violating Clause 9, which emphasized accountability and integrity. This failure shows how neglecting both legal duties and ethical standards can lead to catastrophic consequences.
To prevent future tragedies like Rana Plaza collapse, several recommendations must be enforced, especially in the Malaysian context. Firstly, only registered professional engineers, as required under Section 7 and 8 of the Engineer Act, should be allowed to design, approve, or supervise structural work. Secondly, engineers must reject any project influenced by financial and political pressure that compromises safety. According to Clause 9 to 13 of the BEM Code of Conduct, engineers are expected to act independently and ethically. Thirdly, it is critical that engineers report unsafe practices. Failure to do so may result in disciplinary action under Section 15 of the Act. Finally, independent structural audits should be mandatory for buildings undergoing major changes. This is to ensure safety under changing conditions. By implementing this recommendation, we protect both life and integrity of engineers' professions.
Let's move on to the last chapter, which is the conclusion. The lesson can we take away from the Rana Plaza incident is the first one is the stricter building regulation and enforcement. Second one is the transparent and responsible global supply chain. And the last one is the global commitment to labor rights and safety.